Why don't we go through the top three from last time out, where it was Ash Best taking his first race win of the season and the second Lithuanian on the top step this season. Rafa in second and Recon rounded out the top three. And I have to say, Ash Best was just pretty much in a league of his own.
Ash was really great last week, of course, in Britain, and I think he really drove a very astute race. He got his strategy right, and we talked about last week the strategy. The strategy was key around Silverstone in the end, but very good performances in behind as well from the other guys. And to finish off in second, it was Rafa in second, who I thought was quite unlucky actually last week. He got caught, I think, in a little bit of contact towards the latter end of the race. Recon finishing third as well, defending champion. Really a good result for those guys out on track. And Rafa obviously got pole. Ash got the win. Two Lithuanians have won this season, the other being RRT Thomas. I think it's looking good. And again, it's quite a wide open championship early on in this season, which I think is what you want going forward.
Definitely, and Rafa became the first driver this season not to convert pole to a race win by finishing second in last week's race. Looking at the driver lineup, we have got a couple of substitutions, if you like. Looking down through the order, in the Ferrari now, it is Oshin in one of the Ferraris. Abu there takes over the seat in the Red Bull. We've got Kelvin who's taking his seat in the Racing Point, and we've also, I believe, got I think the Gort is taking over the Williams seat, but we know he can't be here tonight. So a couple of chops and changes there, James. How does that affect a team if they have to go through a change this early on in the season?
It can affect the team quite a lot, to be honest, actually, out on track. And Kelvin and Abu, both new additions, of course, one in the Red Bull, one in the Racing Point, and of course the Gort in the Williams as well. We should see these guys try to excel, I think, out on track. Abu, especially in the Red Bull, I think he's been quite quick from what I've heard about him. He's obviously a Norwegian driver coming from the TAR team. PSC Kelvin as well. Again, not really a familiar name that we associate with ourselves in TTL F1, with him being a new driver, of course. But I'm sure with both of them, we'll find a lot more out about them here tonight. And judging by Kelvin, hopefully he can deliver a good performance as well as Abu.
Well, let's take you through the driver standings here in TTL F1 League 1. Calsper leads the way at the top of the table by 7 points ahead of Dylan Warren. Thomas is there in third with Ashbest in fourth. Rafa fifth with Shapalele in sixth. Recon in seventh. Toxic eighth. Leon Bentley there in ninth and Carsbury down there in 10th place. Lighty is 11th with Navy in 12th. Spike 13th. There you can see Sean and Cass tied on P14. Traw is the last of the point scorers so far in 16th place. Vitinho, Oshin, Flying Cooper and the Gort there. Well, I think it's a little outdated, but they are all yet to score a point this season. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, well, I have to say, only a point separates the top two, and then it is a gulf down towards third place. But Mercedes lead on 77 points, with Toro Rosso 1 point behind, then Renault in third, Haas in fourth, McLaren in fifth, Williams in sixth. 5 points separate third to sixth place at the moment. Red Bull there in seventh place, Alfa Romeo in eighth, Racing Point in ninth, and Ferrari finally getting some points on the board there at the bottom of the table. Whilst we're here as well, the British Grand Prix Season 17 Round 3 Stick-em-up driver of the day was, of course, the race winner Ash Best. And to be honest with you, I think that's a very fair vote. He pretty much did everything apart from get that pole position, James.
Yeah, he drove a really astute race, I think, last week, of course. He's now on 29 points coming into this race here in Germany. However, he's not making it here tonight because he is part of the QVR Nations Cup for Lithuania. Same with Thomas, and I think Rafa is there as well, if I'm not mistaken. So again, reiterate that the attendance might be slightly lower than expected. But again, Ash drove well. He's in fourth in the championship. I mean, he's only 18 points off Calsper, his teammate. Toro Rosso a point behind in the Constructors as well, behind Mercedes. One driver for each team missing here tonight. Could be wide open.
I mean, you said it better than I ever could there, James. Absolutely. With the championship being this close this early on in the season, I mean, it is just fantastic to see as we'll head to the fourth round of the season very, very shortly. And of course, James, we'll have to pretty much see what the weather's going to be like. Hopefully it's not going to be the downpour that we had in the actual German Grand Prix of 2019, although it might spice up the race just a little bit. I don't think it can possibly rain that hard when we go virtual. But you never know. You never know.
You never know. I think the weather is going to be a very telling factor as well. If we get wet competitive tyres out on track on the inters, this track is like an ice rink to drive. Honestly, down into the hairpin especially, down in towards turn 6, the braking points obviously are going to be that little bit heavier, so they're going to have to brake just slightly earlier, but then trying to get the turn into the corner easily can lose the back end if it's wet. If it's dry, they don't have to worry about that too much. The only thing that they have to worry about if it is dry, and indeed if it's wet as well, invalid lap times, and I think that might be the difference between who gets on pole and who gets, for example, 5th or 6th.
Well, let's talk more about that German Grand Prix, the Hockenheim Ring. 17 corners takes us around this legendary Hockenheim Ring, which was redesigned in 2002 from the behemoth, almost 7 kilometre long. Pretty much, you could call it an oval with some chicanes and then the infield circuit at the very end, but redesigned for the 2002 German Grand Prix by Hermann Tilke, takes us through and pretty much bypasses the forests entirely now, but they did include the Parabolica curve with a K. That's how you know they're serious, down towards the hairpin at turn 6. Then, of course, you've got the Mercedes Stadium section where it covers 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So I think the redesign, James, has eventually stuck. I think drivers have realised that this is the track they have to use now. The old one is a bit disused and it's falling apart. The tarmac isn't as good anymore. So I think we're here to stay for this layout.
We are here to stay, and to be honest, Hockenheim is one of my favourite tracks to commentate over, and I think in terms of the tightness of the track, we've got a very difficult final sector, especially through Sachs Curve at turn 13. Through that section, it is very easy to lose the car, no matter what the weather does. It is always very tricky. Down into the Mercedes-Benz Grandstand section at turn 8 as well. That left and right combination through 9 and 10. Yes, count 4 corners there. There isn't. I think there's 3 there, disputed on the F1 official map. But I honestly think it could be quite a telling difference out on track. I mean, we've only got 12 drivers, but what a selection we've got here tonight.
Yeah, we're not going to be short of talent, that is entirely sure. So let's see how it all unfolds here for the 4th round of the championship at the German Grand Prix, as we now dive in towards qualifying for the 18-minute qualifying session. And let's see, fingers crossed, what the weather's going to be like. Hopefully we're not staring at a black screen for too long, and it's overcast. And that's the best way I can put it, to be honest with you. So the track, well, what I can say from this is the track's not going to be as warm. So already Dylan Warren's left, so that's not a great start for him. Already I can see that the track's going to be a little bit cooler than it might be. In the race, that can cause graining, but in qualifying, it could mean that their lap times are about maybe a 10th off because they're not at optimum temperatures. So drivers have got to bear that in mind when they head out onto track.
I think if the conditions improve, obviously the drivers will get their first laps in. We've got the first car coming out on track, which I think is Spike on a set of hard compound of tyres. Just speaking about the tyre degradation around qualifying, it's about 4-5% wear. Don't worry about that too much within qualifying. Worry about that in the race. And honestly, I think these tyres should last quite a long way within the race. But I'll get onto that, of course, when we get there. In terms of qualifying, however, these tyres should get in around, I think, 2 or 3 laps into the session. So they will essentially get quicker and quicker and quicker, these drivers, as the session progresses on. Dylan has obviously left the session. Hopefully we can get an invite back out to him. But honestly, I'm very intrigued because it looks like we've got a bit of a mix in the strategy. Spike on a set of hards, but then looking at Chapelelli and the Williams, he's on a set of medium compound of tyres. Evidently, mediums will be quicker than hards, but it should be quite interesting to see how far the difference is, especially with being overcast conditions.
Yes, absolutely, as we make our way now with Spike in towards that chicane section. And let's see how it all unfolds as we head in towards Sud Curve and around the final corner then, which takes us now on towards this hot lap here, in towards the DRS zone, the short run onwards towards turn 1 there. Use that curve on the left hand side to open up the corner. Be careful not to run too wide because you can risk invalidation. Gets very narrow on the run up towards turn 2, braking hard now as we head in towards turn 2. Turns 3 and 4 are somewhere located in here. points if you can get them, as we now head in towards Parabolica with the DRS wide open. Yes, this lap is invalidated. We're going to stay on board with Spike because it looks like he's going to just do some race sims as we head through Parabolica and then downwards towards the hairpin at turn 6. Very easy to miss your braking point here, as you're just going to gather that car up and try and find the apex as best you possibly can. Short run now as we head towards turn 7. The flying right-hander here. Try not to take too much curb to scrub off the speed as we head in towards turns 8, 9, 10 and 11. Yep, there's 4 corners here. See if you can find them as well. The back end kicking out on Spike then as we headed through turn 11. Then onwards towards turn 12. A very tricky corner, but use that curve on the right-hand side. It's what it's there for. Now we head towards Sachs corner, in towards turn 13. It cambers towards the apex, so you can carry a little bit more speed through there. Through 14 and 15, which comes at you quickly. Then towards Sud curve, through 16, and then towards the final corner at turn 17. And that is a lap of the Hockenheim ring, as on board with the racing point of Spike.
Didn't look too bad actually, a 114.6. His middle sector was quite good, a 51.7. Obviously if the guys are going to be going, they will probably go sub 50s I think out on the track. There's a yellow flag in sector 3, it's Toxic. He was also invalidated on his lap. I think we're going to be waiting quite a long time for the next car to come round. Is it going to be Schiaparelli, I think, coming around the final corner? No, he's also invalidated out on track. So plenty of drivers invalidating early. That is not what you want within the session. I have a feeling, honestly, we'll get only a couple of drivers setting an actual lap time.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Schiaparelli now making his way on towards turn 2. There is a Haas coming towards the line, and it is Sean there. 113.6 on a set of these hard tyres. But to be honest with you, that's probably going to be a summation of what it's going to be like in qualifying. Which drivers can avoid those track limits as best as possible. Kalsper now goes quickest then on a 112.0. Rumours are in the chat, James, that it's going to be a wet race.
Oh, really? Oh, a wet race. I haven't had one in a few weeks actually, so I'm actually looking forward to it. I think honestly it's going to play. What do the drivers do though in qualifying? Do they go and gamble for that wet setup if it's going to be wet for the whole race, or do they put a dry setup on? It's up to them really. I honestly think the dry setup should be better within qualifying, but maybe not so in the race. Taking risks, I think, is what is going to be the difference between winning or losing here at Hockenheim.
And if you did miss it at the very start, we'll just take you quickly through the Drivers' Championship standings. It is Kalsper on top there, with Dylan Warren in 2nd place. Thomas is in 3rd, with Ashbest in 4th place. Rafa is in 5th, with Schiaparelli there in 6th place. Then we have Recon in 7th, with Toxic there in 8th place. Leon Bentley and Carlsbury in the McLarens round out that top 10. Then we get to the second half. Lighty is in 11th with Navy in 12th. Spike in 13th. Sean and Cass tied on 14th place. Straw, the last point scorer there, in 16th place. And all other drivers are yet to score points here in the championship. And I've got to say, it is a very close championship so far. What have you spotted, James?
Recon's just gone quickest actually, 11.9. On a set of soft compound of tyres, you should be really aiming towards the 110s, I feel, I think, on a set of soft. So Recon, 111.9, 600s ahead of Kalsper. Not a bad lap, but he can go a lot quicker, I think.
Well, yes, you've got to remember as well, the track is always evolving. You can see the sun is now poking out through the sky, so the track's going to get warmer, and therefore, in theory, the track should be getting better and better. Let's have a look and see other drivers who are out on a lap. I believe Abu is on a flying lap. Then he makes his way around the final corner. DRS open towards the start-finish line, and it is P4, 13.0 there for Abu on his TTL debut.
Yeah, very good lap that, 113 flat. He just took 4th gear actually coming through Sachs curve. That was to try and prioritise the run through the corner. I think honestly a high 3rd works better than that. But for Abu, 113 flat, this is his chance to put a name for himself in TTL F1. Currently 4th, ahead of Sean, a well-known face here in TTL. Things are going good.
Absolutely. Let's have a look and see. Dylan Warren obviously left the session, has now rejoined back in and is now in the car. I wonder what was going on there. Maybe something to do with the internet. Here's Lighty then making his way around the final corner at his home track and goes top. 111.8 there for Lighty as he puts himself on top and on provisional pole position. So not bad from the German at his home venue.
Not bad at all. I think that was a very good lap. He really nailed sub-curve through 16 and then into 17, prioritised the run through the corner. He's now a 10th ahead, pretty much dead on a 10th ahead of Recon in second. But what these guys have got to remember is that if these guys are going to qualify on a set of soft compound tyres, with it being a wet race, will they have the distinct advantage of getting away early, and will they have the pace to get away early if it's a wet race? You can set a time within qualifying for one stage, and then the other stage is pretty much turning that into a wet compound of tyres. I normally see anyway, some of these drivers they can be very quick in the dry, but they're not so quick in the wet. That could be a very telling difference, I think, out in front tonight.
Well, here is Sean coming towards the line then. Can he improve? Yeah, he does go quicker. 113.1 then on a set of those hard tyres. Here comes Cass then around the final corner, onwards towards that start-finish line. No more ERS to deploy. Puts himself P4 for now. Toxic, who's on an outlap now, on towards his flying lap as he makes his way through turn one. You've got to be so careful through turn one. You want to try and take as much curb as you possibly can, but if you stray all four tyres across that curb, your lap time is invalidated immediately. The only upside to that, James, is that it's not a long lap around here, so you can get it back to the pits and get yourself a new and a fresh set of tyres.
Yeah, it isn't a long lap at all. He's on a set of soft compound of tyres coming into the turn 6 hairpin here, Toxic. Looking very nice actually out on track. Drove a really great race in the TTG main team against TTG Academy battle that was live streamed last night. And Toxic has been coming of himself in TTL F1. It's just a matter of time where he puts that performance together. I think tonight could be his night. Looking through the middle sector, sub 50 through the middle sector, 49.2, fastest of the middle sectors that I've seen. He's looking good on this one.
Absolutely. Well, Chapelet is making his way through the first couple of corners. Let's see what Toxic can do then. Through the chicane he goes now in towards Sud Curve, and the final two corners of the track. You can easily invalidate your lap if you go too wide of the curb at the left hand side. As he heads towards the line, It's a 1:11.3 from Toxic, and that is the fastest lap time so far today. And if it is the case where you've got drivers here who might have a wet setup on for the race, we might not really get down to the 110s that often. Spike then 1:11.4 then, as that puts him onto the front row of the grid. Some of these drivers might be thinking ahead and saying, well, actually, if it's going to be a wet race, there's no point me running a dry setup in qualifying because I'll really suffer in the race. Maybe I should run with a wet setup.
Yeah, I think that is actually indicative of the lap times here out on track so far. You've got Carlsberg down on a 112 flat, for example. Not sure if he's running a wet setup, but he certainly can go a bit quicker, I think, on a set of mediums than that. I think if he was to run a overall dry setup, Chapelletti's just gone 200s quicker than Toxic, so he's gone to the top step of the qualifying podium at this moment in time. But yeah, it is very indicative, I think, what the drivers do. Do they go wet setup or do they go dry setup? If they've chosen a dry setup, it's going to be good for qualifying, but it's not going to be that great for the race. I know Carlsberg can set a quicker lap. Watch out for him, because I think he might be the first one into the 110s, but I've just said that, he's invalidated the lap.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I just saw that. That was that was the track limits at turn 1 at full effect there. I mean, it's so easy to do that. It's too easy to do that. That's probably why I don't race at Germany anymore, because turn 1, just you need hours and hours of practice just to perfect that first turn alone, let alone the rest of the lap.
I can hardly get a valid lap around here, so this is why I'm in the commentary box, and I'm sure this is why you're in the commentary box as well, Kieran. Alongside me, Recon has just invalidated. He was looking good actually through the middle sector. He was 4/10 down on his lap, but he's invalidated on his lap for the exit of turn 11.
Well, Chapelet now coming into the pit lane then, having set the fastest lap of qualifying so far, a 1:11.3, but remember, some of these drivers may be on a wet setup. Recon comes into the pits then. He's currently set a 1:11.9 on a set of the soft tyres, and Carlsberg has now joined in, so although he won't be in qualifying, he will be able to join in at the back of the grid, 13th place in the race. Interesting there. I wonder why he's decided to show up now.
I think, honestly, he might have been running late. I know we started a couple of minutes late, I think, last week, if I recall, for Carlsberg. But he's joined, so we're up to 13 drivers for the race. I'm watching Kelvin, by the way, on a lap, and the Portuguese man just coming around the final couple of corners now, looking okay-ish on a lap. He's going to be around Carlsberg Cass sort of area, I think, with this. In fact, drops down behind Navy, 112.9. He just needs to look a bit more certain, I think, out on track. But for a debut performance, he's going well currently. And Abu, by the way, went 5th, a 111.8. So he's full on second quicker than his fellow debutant out on track. Dill Warren is coming through the final couple of corners and is looking quite quick.
Let's have a look and see what Dylan Warren can do then. Through the final corner he goes. Lighty goes even quicker, 111.1. Here comes Warren and goes 111.149 for Dylan Warren. And pips Lighty to that provisional pole position, at least for now, with just over 5.5 minutes to go.
I think, honestly, we're seeing a bit of an indicator here. Lighty, who normally I think is a little bit off the pace, he's at his home track, he's delivering a good performance. I think he's on a dry setup, though. He shouldn't be that quick if he was on a wet setup. A 111.1 out on track, and the Alfa Romeo man just behind Dill Warren. The fastest lap time changing there within, what, 10 seconds twice? Wow.
Yeah, not bad, is it? Spike then, currently P5, now makes his way to start a new flying lap here on the medium tyres. Through turn 1 we go, just about. Yeah, that is really how you try and take turn 1. That back end wanted to step out on him, but he recovered it well. Through turns 2, 3 and 4 he goes. Let's see if drivers are heading towards the end of their lap. Sean is on a set of these soft tyres. I wonder if he's about to finish a lap or if he's going to start one. Let's see as he crosses the line. He's now, well, he's going to start a new one now as he makes his way through turn 1. There's a Toro Rosso there. Carlsberg making his way in through Sachs Curve, through 13, then through 14 and 15 as he now looks to start a brand new lap. And for Dylan Warren, 111.1 from him so far puts him on provisional pole position.
Puts him on provisional pole, and with 4 minutes to go, I think he is in the prime spot to probably take this. But I'm just looking at that man in 8th position, Recon. You know how late he can come within a qualifying session and set the fastest lap. Is he going to do the same tonight, I wonder, the defending champion? 111.9, might be running a wet setup, but if he's not, expect him to go in and around Dill Warren Lighty sort of area. He can leave it quite late.
He can indeed. He's done it before. He's caught me out before by leaving it that late. Looking at the pole sitters so far this season, Thomas has been on pole once, Carlsberg has been on pole once, and Rafa on pole once. So 11 out of these 12 drivers have not been on pole position yet this season, so the odds are ever in their favour. Let's see if Recon can try and grab his first pole of the season. He's got 8/10 to find, though, at least.
Just watching Carlsberg currently on the lap. Yeah, he's only got 4/10 to find at least on that. Carlsberg, by the way, he's 4/10 up within the middle sector. And I tell you what, he's done an absolute flying lap here. And as soon as I say that, he's into the pits.
That was literally as soon as you said that, James. Literally as soon as you said that. Luckily, there is someone out on track, so we don't have to look at a pit lane. It is Chapalele who's out there on an outlap as he heads his way through turn 7, onwards now towards turns 8, 9, 10 and 11. So, I mean, how do you think Chapalele's getting on this season so far? I mean, there might be a little bit of pressure. Obviously, Williams here will be expecting big things from Chapalele, the German. Does that favour him being at his home Grand Prix, or do you think that might hinder him?
I think it might actually work to his advantage. Remember, the home crowd advantage is there for Chapalele. He's on a set of soft competitive tyres, 3rd currently in qualifying. Looking at his point scoring total so far, 26 points leaves him, 6th in the championship currently. Only a couple of points behind Rafa, a point ahead of Recon. If he can outscore Recon, and if he can outscore Dill Warren especially, I think, here tonight, Chapalele could be within a good chance of potentially going up the championship order and maybe landing himself within the championship battle. 500's up through the first sector. As long as he can put a good, consistent middle and final sector together, this could be pole.
It could be. Well, let's see as he makes his way down towards the hairpin here, locking up on the front right just a little bit as he was trying to slow that car down. Now we head towards turn 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Flat through 7 there as we head away towards turn 8. Watch that sleeping policeman on the inside there. It can unsettle the car if you're not careful. Then it's a bit of undulation as you make your way through 11. Watch out there. It's very easy to invalidate your lap time going wide through there. Now heading through turn 12, using those curves a treat as he makes his way now in towards Sachs Curve through turn 13 here. Again, cambering towards the apex. You can carry a bit more speed through the quick chicane. Now in towards Sud Curve through 16 and then through 17. A little bit of understeer through 16, but I think he's got away with it as he heads towards the start-finish line. And it is provisional pole position, 110.9 from Shapalele. The German is on pole and first driver into the 110s.
Neatest lap you will see all night in qualifying. And I think that just comes to show he's now 2/10 ahead of Dylan Warren out on track. The guys have got to put in a good lap now out on track. I think Lighty might be one of the next ones to come across the line. I think everyone else is on an out lap. He's currently looking okay on an out lap. He's using the overtake mode 5, but third currently for him. He's got to find 2/10 per second.
He has got to find that. However, I think he's capable of it. We'll just have to see what his strategy is like when we head to the race. We've got a racing point off at the final corner. I think that was Kelvin, who's now having to make his way to the pit lane. He's lost a chunk of front wing on the left-hand side. 20 seconds to go then in qualifying. Let's see if we can ride back on board with Light as he makes his way through the final two corners. Now through the final corner. Onwards now towards that start-finish line. Can he improve on his time so far? No, he can't. 9/10 down on his previous best. So, I mean, he's got time to go for another lap, and if it is a wet start, then he might as well go for another run.
He may as well go for another one. You never know. Put all your chips on the table right now. Speaking of putting all the chips on the table, Toxic coming around the final couple of corners now. He's looking very good on this lap. Could challenge Shapalele for pole position. Comes across the line. He just goes in behind him by about... Well, he improved by 2.5 tenths there, but he's behind him by about 1 3/4 tenths. Kalsberg just takes it.
Galsper on provisional pole position. Can Dylan Warren do anything about it? No, he can't. It would have been a 1:10.8, which would have put him on pole position, but it was an invalidation. Recon now makes his way towards the line. Navy moves up to P7. How about Recon here? No, P10
Invalid
for Recon, and another invalidation there. That would have put him really up in 7th place. So a bit off colour there for Recon as it stands. Abu here is on a flying lap, as well as Lighty. Actually, Abu here is in mode 0. I wonder what Lighty. So I think they've both sort of abandoned that one here. But that could mean then that pole position will be decided as Abu heads back to the pit lane, and I assume Lighty is going to do the same. He does. So that means then your pole sitter for the German Grand Prix, I believe now it is his second pole position of the season. First at the Spanish Grand Prix, now he gets one at the German Grand Prix. Kalsper on pole position for the 4th round of the championship.
Well, look what happened in Spain when he took pole position. He also won the race, and Kalsper by 12 hundredths of a second, leaving it very late to get Shapalele. Toxic in third drove very well. He didn't set a consistent enough final sector, and that's why there is a significant gap, I think, between Shapalele and Toxic. I mean, when I talk significant gap, it's 2/10 of a second around Germany. That's a significant gap, considering I think the whole field is separated by about a second.
Well, Kalsper then on pole position for the German Grand Prix. As we see those results, Shapalele is in 2nd place with Toxic in 3rd. Warren is in 4th with Lighty in 5th. Spike in 6th. That is Navy in 7th. Cass in 8th. Abu 9th. And Recon rounds out the top 10. Kelvin in 11th and Sean there in 12th place. But don't worry, because we do have one more driver in Carlsbury in P13. He'll be starting at the back of the grid.
I think Carlsbury might have actually left the session during qualifying. I'm not sure if he rejoined back. Don't think I saw it pop up on my screen, so might be we're only down to 12.
Well, we shall see then. I mean, it's predicted to be a wet race, so let's see if the heavens really are open as we head towards the fourth round of the championship. I'm full of mistakes tonight. Please make fun of me. And look at that, the heavens really are open. God. It is going to be wet. No, this is wet weather. This is full wets. Definite full wets.
Is that? I can see a green wall compound tyres though in the pit lane. Oh no, you're right. Yeah, it's blue. That's my eyesight going.
Also, it's chucking it down right in front of you, James. I've got to be honest. But anyway, so wet setups were a big thing there. Recon as well said about wet setup 11-11 on the wings and also ride height. So that's quite something. But yeah. Circuit map, as you can see on the screen, 2 DRS zones, one across towards from turn 1 to 2, and then the other one from Parabolica all the way down towards the hairpin at turn 6. And it's 17 corners that takes us around this legendary Hockenheimring circuit. Obviously, it's not the old one. It's not the legendary oval with the couple of chicanes slapped in there at certain points. But you know what? This circuit does have a certain charm to it. And we've seen in the past that wet races around this track really are something to watch. And let's see if it rains throughout the whole race.
I think, honestly, it's going to be quite telling for the drivers out on track. Obviously, these guys, I think, if I'm not right in saying, it's the first wet race of the season here in TTL F1, season 17, and Kalsper on top. Looking at Dil Warren, he spun through turn 1, so I'm not sure if that might be a sign of things to come for him. Hopefully, he might be just trying to get a bit of warmth into those tyres. In terms of wet compound strategy, these guys out on track should probably only pit once, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be just before or dead on the halfway stage out on track. I think that's when the drivers will probably pit out on track. But honestly, wet races around here throw up a right treat. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, as you said, quite rightly, James, the first wet race of the season, and as you quite rightly said, I expect drivers to pit in slightly earlier than half race distance, so anywhere between lap 14 to 17 is when I expect drivers to pit in, because they'll want to try and take advantage of the undercut, because it is so powerful around here. That's of course assuming that it rains for the entire race. We don't know. All we know is it's raining right now, but what will it be like in the future? What will it be like when we've passed 34 laps? Well, there's really only one way to find out, as Kalsper tiptoes his way through Sachs curve then and onwards now through that fast chicane, which won't be as fast in the wet weather, as we make our way through the final 2 corners and onwards towards the grid for the 12th I'm lost with my numbers. The 4th round of the 17th season. Where I got 12 from? It's because there's 12 drivers. That's where I got it from. Well recovered, Kieran. But as Kalsper makes his way on towards that pole position place that he's rightfully earned in qualifying by just over 100th of a second. Once all the cars are lined up, it will mean we are moments away from the German Grand Prix here in TTL F1 League 1 for the 4th round of this championship. Kalsper on pole position for the 2nd time this season. Can he once again try and convert pole position to a win as we count up to 5 red lights? We are underway, and what are the starts like? Navy's jumped the start. He'll get a drive through. How about the rest of them? Well, Kalsper's got a fantastic start then as we head in through turn 1 now. It's going to be very treacherous and very tricky through that first corner as Dylan Warren tries to take advantage. Toxic on the defence then as we head up towards turn 2. You've got Spike behind as well as Recon looking in the distance there. Lighty having to try and defend from Dylan Warren. Look at the spray. You can see Warren can hardly see anything through there, but he's managed to hold on to 4th place as Lighty now holds on to 5th. Spike, meanwhile, is trying to take advantage of Lighty, trying to attack early on as we make our way through Parabolica and down towards the hairpin at turn 6. We're almost 3 wide there as the Alfa Romeo has to concede the position, but Spike runs deep and takes Warren with him. They both run wide. Lighty could try and take advantage. Navy struggles for grip out of the hairpin there, and Spike has to go defensive into 7, which means Navy has to back out. Look at Warren here, going around the outside of turn 7, now up the inside at turn 8. He's got that position from Navy there, and Warren could have P5, and he does. Takes it away from Spike there. Fantastic stuff. Spike is struggling in these conditions right now. He's under pressure from Cass as we head away through turn 12. Cass is on the outside here, Spike on the inside. They're not giving each other an inch there. They're not backing down from this one. Recon then in 9th place as we make our way through turn 13. Loses that back end, but able to collect it there at the risk and the loss of 1 position there from Spike. But as we make our way and tiptoe around the circuit for the first time, Kalsper it is who leads from Chapelele in 2nd and Toxic in 3rd, with Lighty, Warren, Cass, Spike, Recon, Sean, Abu, Kelvin rounding out that top 11, and Navy's in for his drive-through. What a start, James.
What a start. A little bit messy, to be honest, towards the back of the field. Recon lost it off the start. His 11-11 wings not really suiting him, I've got to be honest, out from the start. But Dylan Warren has shown great commitment to try and get the move done. Did that 2-for-1 on Spike, and I think it was on Cass as well, as now he's on the back of Lighty, running through the parabolic section. German against Brit here in Hockenheim, down towards turn 6. Can Dylan Warren get the move done down the inside? It always favour the outside corner through here in the wet. He runs a little bit deep, but I think Lighty is just going to rejoin, maybe side by side with him. Dill's just got the front wing ahead, but it's side by side through turn 7. Good racing. I think Dill might have this one around the outside line. Can he get the move done? Cass and Spike also side by side. Spike goes very much deep into the corner. Cass gets the move done, and Recon might go through as well. Dill has got the move done though on Lighty, and Spike is round.
Spike is around then at turn 12 as he has to try and rejoin onto that circuit then as Navy with his drive-through. In all honesty, Navy's drive-through I don't think has cost him as much time as he realises at this moment in time. With cars battling ahead of him, it's a very short pit lane at the German Grand Prix. He's not out of this, not by a long shot.
Navy not out of this at all, and I'm under the impression that he is on a wet setup as well. Spike obviously struggling just ahead of him. He's right on the back of him, just coming through Sachs curve, now through 13 and 14, in towards sub curve at 16, then through 17, and he's on the back of him. Also, Cass Recon getting quite close to Light T. Battle for 4th is beginning to heat up, and 7/10 of a second leading as now Navy passes Spike down the straight, down towards turn 1, gets the move done. Not often you see an overtake in there through turn 1 in the wet, but a good move by Navy. What's happened?
Collision at turn 4 there as Lighty is around. There was a bit of contact, bit of Constantina effect.
Cass as well.
Lighty is all the way around. Cass getting caught up in it as well in the Ferrari. A little bit of contact going through turn 4. Just then a Constantina effect, which then caused Lighty to have a spin. I'll have to have a look back at that properly in order to see what exactly happened, but it happened so quickly I wasn't quite sure. But anyway, lap 3, Kalsper in the lead from Shapalele in second. Toxic starting to drop back, but now Warren has a bit of clear air and he looks to try and close in on Toxic once again. Just going through what happened there, it kind of looked like, yeah, Recon's hit the back of the Alfa Romeo here. The Alfa Romeo lost it going through turns 2 and 3. That's what happened, and Recon just didn't quite react quickly enough, which sent the Alfa Romeo spinning around, and Cass was just the unfortunate victim in that one, as Lighty has had a little bit of a moment coming through turn 11 there.
Yeah, driver's struggling out on track. I think it's predictable though. Oh, when he's
lost a bit of front wing, right hand side.
Oh, he's off at Sachs curve as well.
Yeah, not good at all for Lighty.
Didn't go into the wall, luckily, like Vettel.
Oh, well, he'll have to try and limp his way back towards the pit lane if he possibly can. Meanwhile, then, Sean is on the back of Recon as we make our way in towards turns 2 and 3, and then obviously 4 as well. Shapalele's done well to keep close eye on Kalsper. 0.8 of a second so far. Obviously, with this pouring rain, there is no DRS at this moment in time. It is still chucking it down out here. Abu is right on the back of Sean then as we head towards turn 6. Sean feels the need to go defensive, but he has a higher top speed heading down towards the hairpin there, so obviously something's working on that ERS, or he's got a little bit of lower aero that is benefiting him down the straight. But where there's rain, you need that downforce, you need that grip to help you through the corners. So maybe that is where the Haas is going to start to struggle. Recon there in 5th place at the moment, trying to hold on, but he's got Sean and Abu right behind him. And there you can see the battle for the lead as they head their way through Sachs curve. Kalsper leading Shapalele. Toxic trying to stay within ballpark distance, 2.3 behind Shapalele, which means he's about 3.1 away from the lead. And that was Recon there getting all sorts of trouble there through turn 12. I think he might have front wing damage on the left-hand side, and he does. Yeah. That's why he's struggling for grip out there. It's again opposite luck on entry into 16, and he now peels off in towards the pit lane to get that front wing changed. That's probably why he had so little grip out there. There's one thing losing a front wing in the dry, but losing a front wing in the wet is even worse.
Oh, Sean Needy having a moment there through turn 1 as well. Yeah, losing the front wing is very costly within the wet conditions. Obviously, this is going to add another 5 seconds on for his pit stop out on track. But Recon is going to be out ahead of Light T, I do believe. In fact, I'll correct myself because I think Light T is going to be out ahead of Recon here. Looking at the minimap, yeah, Light T is ahead of Recon. Abu, by the way, I was going to come on to a point that I was going to make before Recon pitted. he was looking quicker out of those three drivers. Out of Rico and Sean, Abu was looking quicker than the two of the guys in front. And I think it's telling because he is catching Sean through the corners. And I've been reliably informed within the comments, he is one of the top 10 drivers in Norway as well, in the wet. So this is where he should come into play.
He should. Well, he makes his way now in through 11 and 12, but he's got to try and get past Sean to begin with. The more time he spends battling away, the more time he loses as we head now through turn 12, onwards now towards Sachs Curve at turn 13. It's just Sean's doing a good job here of keeping that Red Bull at bay. As we're on lap 6, as you can see, it's actually raining horizontal. That is how much it's raining out here at the Hockenheim Ring. So it is atrocious conditions out here for these cars. And as you can see, there's still standing water out on the track. So it's definite wet weather tyre for the time being. But that rain has been relentless so far, has not let up at all. Sean's run wide at turn 1 there. He's got to be careful about doing that because the in-game stewards do not like you doing that too many times. As Recon here gets away past Lighty, who's found himself in trouble again at his home Grand Prix. Another front wing that is gone. Oh, he's lost the back end and into the wall. Somehow gets away with it. Meanwhile, then Navy gets past Cass here as we head in towards turn 4 and 5 now, as Lighty has retired from the race entirely. Navy looking to try and hold off from Cass down towards turn 6, and he does so indeed. So Navy gets to hold on to the position. You can see there Navy taking a wider line there. You can see he'll get the better traction out of turn 6 and gets away from that Ferrari behind. His sights now are on Kelvin for P7.
Kelvin just got to be careful actually through turn 7. He just cut the grass. That could be a warning for him out on track, but Navy looking quicker, visibly quicker. That drive-through penalty has suited him well. The sun, by the way, is trying to break through. It is beginning to lighten up, but trust me, the rain is going to be very, very hard out on track. Lighty, by the way, just to come on for a point about that, I said in qualifying, it's one thing to set a good lap in qualifying, it's a different thing within the race. And Lighty, I think, has been called out. Showed good pace in the dry, but in the wet, he's just totally not like this at all, and that's why he is DNF'd out of the race. Cass, by the way, is catching Navy and Kelvin as well. So three-way battle for 7th, beginning to really put into the melting pot, I think, and Abu getting close to Sean as well.
Yeah, so 2 good battles to see out on track then as we head towards turn 2, and you can see drivers are really struggling for grip through turn 1, and then they're struggling for grip on the exit of turn 3 and 4 there. So they've really got to be careful about how much power they plant down, how much pressure is applied to that loud pedal. Meanwhile, Navy here is on the back of Kelvin. Will he try and move down the inside? No, he thinks better of it, and so too does the Ferrari. You can see a different line being taken by Navy there, trying to do some gardening across turn 6. It might work for him though, because he's got a better traction and a better line through turn 7. Oh, he's cuts across the grass completely there. Then the Racing Point got out of the way. Navy then gets the move done.
Yeah, got the move done. No 3 seconds on penalty from out on track. And I mentioned Kelvin cut across the grass a lap ago. That's exactly what Navy did there to get the overtake done. But really good reading of the situation there by Navy. He is beginning to come into this race. I've got to be honest, don't rule him out of a top 3 here tonight. Cass is on the back of Kelvin as well, and Kelvin maybe just beginning to struggle out on track. But for a debut performance, he's doing well.
He's not doing too badly at all. I mean, what a race to make your debut in these treacherous and poor conditions. I mean, it's a baptism of fire. Well, there's plenty of water around, so we could probably pull that off. Anyway, Kalsper still leading the way then of the German Grand Prix with Chapelele in second. Toxic now 3.9 behind the driver ahead, but he's 6.7 ahead of Dylan Warren. So at the moment, he's just in a bit of a race of his own as Cass looks like he's trying to get a move on Kelvin done through turn 3, and he's got the move done through 4.
Yeah, Kelvin just went very deep in towards turn 2. Cass swept it up the inside. The Ferrari is through on Kelvin, and he's up to P8, and that was pretty much a very easy move. Abu on the back of Sean as well through the hairpin. Probably going to be about 3/10 away as they come down towards the Mercedes-Benz section. But currently, Abu doing well. But Sean put up a good fight in 5th position, and knowing Sean, he's not going to put up a good. He's really going to put up a good fight here, and he just rejoins track in front of him. Parks the bus pretty much. If there was a bus out on track, he would have parked it, and Abu is on the back of him. But Sean putting up a very stoic fight in 5th position currently.
Absolutely. If there's one thing Sean can do, it's defend. He will defend a position as much as he possibly can. Kalsper with the fastest lap of the race, a 1:26.937. Yeah, I mean, Sean had a bit of a wayward season at Ferrari last time out. Now he's back with Haas, and it looks like he's recaptured that great point-scoring form that he found at Haas. Sometimes when you just go with a team, the chemistry is just there, and maybe that now that he's back at Haas, he feels like that form has been recaptured. Meanwhile, Abu is doing his absolute best to try and get that 5th place away from Sean. But like I've said, Sean is probably one of the toughest people to pass out on track. This will not be easy for Abu, but he might have a chance through Parabolica.
Yeah, he's right on the back now. Is Abu going to use his wet weather skills to good effect? Sean defending down towards the hairpin. I don't think he's going to be quite close enough, and in fact he's not going to even go for the overtake. Somebody that might go for the overtake though. 2 racing points nearly going side by side down to the hairpin. Spike's got his nose into the corner. Kelvin runs a little bit too deep inside of the apex there for Spike. Can he get the move done on his teammate? It's side by side running down towards 7-7, and he has in fact got that move done. So Spike is through up to 9th, and Abu and Sean side by side, and look at Navy on the back of these guys.
Absolutely, Sean and Navy were pretty much going side by side. Oh, Soren and Abu, my apologies, were going side by side through there, and eventually Abu had to back out of it because Sean had those wheels. Exactly where he wanted them to be, as Kalsper sets yet another fastest lap of the race. It's 1:26 there, 1.4 ahead of Shapalele. Toxic there in third at the moment, 5.1 behind Shapalele, but 7.7 ahead of Dylan Warren. He's just got to try and keep his head out there, keep his cool, and he could walk away with a fantastic result. Meanwhile, we'll rejoin this battle for 5th place as they make their way up towards turn 2. Don't try and pass at the narrowest part of the track here. Navy has joined the fray in this battle for P5.
Yeah, Navy looking quicker than the 2 guys ahead. The Red Bull and the Haas now beginning to maybe struggle with the tyre wear. But Sean got a good run out there of turn 3. Now through Parabolica at turn 4. Sorry, turn 5 this is. Then down towards the hairpin at turn 6. But look at Navy. Look at the closing speed. The Renault right there. Can the banana car got the inside of the Red Bull? He's got his nose in there, similar to what we saw with Spike a lap ago. But Abu hangs around the outside, and Navy just has a bit of an opposite lock coming out of the corner, and that just forces them down into 7th. So they remain as they are. And just to speak about the front 2, they are really dominating out on track. Oh, Abu goes very deep into the corner. This could let Navy through. Around the outside line, he does. Navy's got the move done. Abu just running wide. Just to speak about what I was going to say about the top 2, Kalsper and Shapalele look like they're in a different league out on the track. These guys have got a pure wet setup on these cars. They're pulling away from Toxic and Dill Warren. Those 2 are stuck in a right rut at this stage with 3rd and 4th, and they're in a bit of no man's land.
Well, let's see how it all pans out, because Navy, as you see, got past Abu. Now he's got a chance to try and get past Sean as they make their way onto that main straight. Sean having a little bit of a moment out of the final corner, but able to gather that one up nicely. Navy, though, is on a charge. He'll want to try and just get that 5th place and have a chance at closing in on Warren, who will be the next car heading towards turn 2. Again, no DRS because of these treacherous and poor conditions. Navy, you can see, trying to take a different line, and look at this, he's trying to make the corner as straight as possible. Look at that from Navy there, now drawn side by side alongside the Haas there. That was a spectacular move, but it's not over yet, because Sean pulls over to the right hand side of the track, looking down the inside of the hairpin here. Can he try and stick this up the inside? Can he try and hold on to this position? No, look at that. Navy gets the traction on the outside, and the Dutchman moves up to 5th. That was expertly done.
Fantastic move there by Navy. One of the best moves you might see in the wet in Hockenheim right there. Navy getting the move done. I think it's the 2nd time he's done that as well. I'm sure he pulled off a similar move to Cass a few laps ago. So Navy getting past Sean. He can now put the hammer down to Dill Warren, and arguably he's looking quicker out of the mid-pack. So Navy, I did say a top 3 might be on the cards. You never know what you're going to get. And still with a drive-through, he's up to 5th. Let's just put that into perspective. From a drive-through penalty on lap 1, and he's up to 5th. He is driving an absolute expert race.
He absolutely is, and it's a long way to go. Lap 12 of this German Grand Prix, and Kausper is still your race leader. Chapelele in second, 1.8 seconds the gap between them, with Toxic in third, 6.1 behind second place. Dylan Warren there in fourth. He's in a bit of a race of his own as well, but you can see from that yellow fuel light on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, he is under-fueled, where in the wet you actually use less fuel than you do if you're running in the dry. So in all honesty, that's planned from the very start. Meanwhile, Abu then still trying to challenge for sixth place as we make our way now down towards that hairpin of turn 6, but just the Red Bull is just too far behind. Meanwhile, Spike might have a go on Cass here down the inside, but he backs away from it, not willing to try and move down the inside there. Maybe try and get the apex of the traction off the hairpin on the run now towards turn 7. You can see how close he is to the back of that Ferrari, but you could see, or you could hear, sorry, the right foot just completely go off the accelerator because he didn't want to go into the back of Cass. But Spike is just trying and battle away here. Chapelele is into the pits. Cass doesn't get a good run through turn 11. Spike is up the inside at turn 12. We've seen moves like this happen before, but Spike backs away from it. The door was closing and Spike said, I'm out of here, and holds now P9 behind the Ferrari. But you can see Spike wants that position and is just trying to see if Cass will make a mistake. Chapelele, meanwhile, exits the pit lane and rejoins just behind Toxic there, and that is Dylan Warren, that is, and that just shows you the short pit lane and the gap he had to Warren, that he's now rejoined behind him, and that should get him to the end now because he's tried the undercut. Recon gets away past Kelvin then, and Recon is now up into the points. How about Spike though, because he's right behind Cass. He wants this position. He's willing to put the cars side by side at certain points. Meanwhile then, Chapelele has past Warren there, and that looked a little easy, as you say here. Meanwhile, Spike looking for a move now down towards turn 6. We're going through Parabolica right now. Now comes the right-hander, the hairpin at turn 6. Spike down the inside he goes this time around. Can he slow the car down in time? Yes, he can. But can Cass try and find the traction? No, he can't. Spike slams that door shut and now moves up to 8th place.
Beautiful move of the hairpin there from Spike, getting Cass done. Just forced him a little bit out wide as to the normal line he normally takes through there, does Cass, but Spike getting the move done, playing Cass into his palm of his hand right there, and he's up into 8th position. Abu somehow is still on the back of Sean. I cannot believe he has not found a way through here out on track. The rain is beginning to get a little bit thinner, I've got to say, out on track. It's still maintaining the intensity, but that normally, and take the word for me here, this normally indicates that we are probably a few laps away from it actually changing to lighter rain and to the intermediate conditions in turn.
Well, we shall have to wait and see, as Abu here is still on the back of Sean, as you said. And this is what I'm telling you, Sean's one of the toughest drivers to overtake out here. He is consistent, but you've got to be quicker than him, lap after lap after lap, in order to have a chance to find your way past. Recon then is setting the fastest lap of the race. He actually pitted very early on. He's only on now 9-lap-old wet tyres, and I wonder if he's thinking that that could be enough to get him to the end of the race, as Kelvin there picks up a 3-second time penalty. Meanwhile then, the Red Bull and the Haas going side by side in towards turn 6. Sean is not going to give up on this position. Abu's going to try that switchback on the exit of turn 6, and he gets the traction, he gets the power down, and at long last the Red Bull finds its way past the Haas and up to 6th place.
That's why he is one of the top 10 drivers in Norway in the wet conditions. Abu getting the move done on Sean, up for 6th position. Kausper into the pits from the lead of the race. It was 16.5 seconds the gap between these guys. I think honestly it's going to be quite close between these guys out on track. Chapelele through the final corner. Kausper coming out of his pit box now. I think Chapelele might just fall in behind here.
Well, let's have a look, because he's just set the fastest lap of the race through turn 1. Look at this, Kausper's on the right-hand side. He's just emerged ahead here, but Chapelele has a good run up towards turn 2. And Kausper's left the door open as we head through turns 2, 3 and 4. The Williams is up the inside here, but there you can see Kausper just about has the grip around the outside at turn 4. Now they head through Parabolica. Look at Chapelele. In the slipstream we go. Bear in mind he's gained 1.8 seconds with that pit stop and that undercut. He'll have to go round the outside at turn 6 though. The Toro Rosso is not going to make this an easy move. Kalsper trying to hold on to the lead of the race.
Wow.
Shapalele can't quite get the power down, and Kalsper can just about hold on to the lead of the German Grand Prix. But I wonder if he can hold on as much as he can, because now around the outside at turn 8, Kalsper defends well through 9, 10 and 11, and somehow Shapalele stopped that in time. Spike is out on a set of intermediate tyres here. Now I wonder if that was the case or if that's a mistake. Well, we'll soon find out as we head down towards turn 6. Can he stop that car in time? Well, we'll have to keep an eye on the Racing Point. It is a very bold call from Spike, but he's obviously thought he's got nothing to lose. Let's try the risk.
He's just getting 4 tenths through the hairpin there on Kelvin, so Spike clearly thinking there might be intermediate conditions. I wonder if he's taken a leaf out of my book for that one when I mentioned about the inters a couple of laps ago. Shapalele, though, on the back of Kalsper, he's just beginning to lose the time. He was right on the back of him, but those fresher tyres are just beginning to come into play out on the track for Kalsper, and he's now beginning to pull out that margin, and they're still quite a distance ahead of Toxic out on track. It's 8 seconds from Shapalele to Toxic out on track, and that would be from net P3. Cass coming into the pits, and Inter's out in his pit box, I think that is. No, it's not. It's a full set of wets.
Full wets on for the Ferrari, and away he goes. So, yeah, it's interesting here. It's almost like there's a sort of cut-off here and a crossover point, because Spike here looks pretty confident. He went purple through Sector 3, did Spike there, on a set of the intermediate tyres. So he's obviously very confident, and this must be the narrowest, or the widest crossover point I think I've ever seen in wet weather conditions. He's gone purple through Sector 1 now.
He has gone purple through Sector 1. Let me have a look then at some of the... Well, let me have a look in comparison from the fastest lap of Shapalele. 26 flat currently out on track from him. Shapalele's first sector, a 19.150. Spike, an 18.795. 4 tenths of a second quicker than Shapalele through the first sector. And I think he has called this pretty much to a T. Could be on for top 5.
Now, the only problem is, has he made the call too early? Will those intermediate tyres get him to the end? We know the wet weather tyres are pretty durable. They can take a beating, but the intermediates, if it's slightly too wet or not wet enough, they will completely fall apart. They're not meant to basically withstand heavy rain or no rain at all. It's literally where the track is slightly slippery. Yellow flags in Sector 3, and that is Cass, who is around there on the exit of turn 12, and he's lost his front wing completely and will have to limp his way back towards the pit lane. Sean is into the pits. What tyres go on? Full wets go on to the Haas then, as Spike sets the fastest lap of the race on a set of the intermediate tyres. Kelvin is also into the pits now. Our Racing Point thinking the same thing for his teammate. Full wets. So it is really the most difficult call out here you could possibly make as we approach half distance. The drivers can't decide whether it should be full wets or intermediates, but the intermediates is setting the fast lap times as Cass has retired from the race in the pit lane, and so we're now down to 10 runners. So get this car to the checkered flag and you've got yourself some points. That is the key objective now.
That is the key objective out on track, and I'm sure these guys will just focus on keeping these cars within the white line out on track. Just in regards to Spike, he was 7 tenths quicker than Shapalele's previous fastest lap out on track. Is he going quicker, I wonder, through the middle sector? Let me find out. This would be a good indicator to see if it's intermediate or if it's wet or not. Spike through the middle sector. He's a tenth up, nearly 2 tenths up, in fact. Dill Warren into the pit for the Mercedes team, and that is a set of Inters.
Inters are ready for the Mercedes crew, so off into those tyres he goes, and away he goes, back and rejoining the track. So that could be a call. I think Warren's seen those quick laps from Spike and thought, you know what, I want some of those lap times as well. Where will he rejoin though? He should rejoin well clear of Recon. He's got to be careful about that white line though, but he will rejoin in 6th place as Spike sets yet another fastest lap of the race, 25.1 from him. He is absolutely flying, although he's just picked himself up a 3-second time penalty. Now, Warren here, he's made the decision now to go onto the set of the intermediates. Now, if he passes Abu, that's going to send a message to Abu that the intermediate tyres are ready. That could set off a chain reaction. So Warren wants this advantage for as long as possible, as does Spike, but I wonder if the leaders, what are they thinking right now? They don't want to lose the lead of this race. They've only just really come into the pits. They'll be under threat from Navy and Abu at this point in time, and I think Navy and Abu are trying to extend their wet weather tyre stint to try and go onto a set of intermediates and keep themselves in the running. Look how much Dylan Warren has closed up to the back of Abu though. 0.6 of a second, as yeah, you can see Abu is really struggling on those 17 lap old wet tyres. And look at this Warren here. Will he try and move down the inside of turn 13? I highly hope not, because that's not an overtaking opportunity here as we now head the way through. Warren's just got to be patient now. He knows he's on the quicker tyres. He knows he's on much fresher tyres too, as he now tiptoes his way through the final couple of corners as Abu comes into the pit lane. Then he can't make those wet weather tyres go on for any longer. And what tyres will he re-emerge on, I wonder? Now he'll have got the message that Warren is on a set of the intermediate tyres. So what tyres are ready? They are the green wall tyres of the Inters, and on they go then, and away he goes to rejoin this race. However, the two leaders still battling away, 9/10 between them, both on the wet weather tyres.
I think Carlsberg's made a mistake somewhere out on track. He's lost 0.6 of a second this lap out on track, and I think Carlsberg's tyres are beginning to maybe go off, and Schiaparelli's older tyres, which are essentially going to be warmer out on track, they're beginning to gain, and I think Schiaparelli has now got the pace on Carlsberg to try and get the move done. But just to speak about the gap from the lead to Dill Warren, it's 25 seconds out on track. Remember, pit stop around here about 17 or 18 seconds, so Dill Warren, in theory, if Toxic is to come in as well, will be in a net P3 out on track. Carlsberg very wide through the curve at 16 and then into 17. But he's 0.8 of a second clear. I think, though, he made a mistake on that last lap, which wasn't caught on the stream, and that's why he's lost the time to Schiaparelli.
Well. If you have to make a decision now to run the wet weather tyres to the end or put on a set of intermediate tyres, what on earth do you do as Navy now comes into the pits? He's extended that stint for as long as he possibly can, and surely this must mean he goes onto a set of intermediate tyres.
Oh, no,
their intermediates are going onto the car. Yeah. And he will now rejoin onto the circuit. So that's going to hand Dylan Warren 4th place there. What about Spike? He now moves up to 5th place with that very early call. The only thing is now he's got to make those intermediate tyres last to the end of this German Grand Prix. Can they hold on, I wonder? Navy rejoins in 6th place ahead of Abu, who's now in 7th place. Sean here has moved up to 8th place, but he's on a fresh set of wet tyres. Recon rejoins in 9th on a fresh set of intermediate tyres. Kelvin stays out on his wet weather tyres. Well, this is going to be an interesting one. It doesn't look like, in all honesty, the rain falling onto the track doesn't make me think Inters at first glance, but obviously the racing line doesn't have standing water on it anymore. It's just the outsides of the circuit. There you can see the standing water there. Obviously the racing line, where these wet weather tyres can disperse 70 litres of water per second, they're obviously doing a job to get this water off the racing line, so much so that you can use the intermediate tyres.
Yeah, and I honestly think you can really ride on board with. I'm right on board with Schiaparelli currently out on track. You can actually see the racing line beginning to appear out on track. Obviously, it's not going to be a dry line out on track, but the racing line is visibly now beginning to appear out on track. Lap upon lap, however, these conditions will change. And I think, speaking of which, Dill Warren has just set the fastest lap, 24.8 out on track. He has gained out of his pit stop within 2 of 3 laps 2.5 seconds on Carlsberg, maybe even more than that, and that's just me being conservative with the figures there. I think Dill Warren, the further he gets into this race, obviously he's going to have to let the Inters go to the end of the race and going to have to make them go to the end. Carlsberg and Schiaparelli have got to respond sooner rather than later out in track, because Dill Warren, if he's catching at the pace that he is, I could honestly see Dill being ahead in this race within 3 or 4 laps.
Well. I mean, it is quite a distance, though. It's about 22 seconds between himself and Carlsberg at the moment. But with only about 14 laps to go, 13 and a bit if you're picky, this is anybody's race. Grab your popcorn. This is your last chance to grab it, because we're in for an absolute thriller of a final race. Carlsberg, Schiaparelli and Toxic, I think, have made their decision clear. They're staying out on the wet tyres until further notice. That is their plan. Toxic will be under threat the most because he's 9 seconds behind the battle for the lead, and Dylan Warren is only 11.6 behind him as well. So this will be an interesting one. Will the leaders come into the pits for intermediate tyres in the end, or will they try and slug it out on the wet weather tyres? Who's to say, but we're in for a great finale.
We are in for a fantastic finale, and I think we'll just speak about, honestly, the gap between Dylan Warren and Toxic. I've been monitoring this gap throughout this race so far, and since he's pitted on the Inters, he's only been on these tyres now for 5 laps, but he has gained 5 seconds on Toxic alone. That was 17 seconds the last time I looked. It's now 11 seconds, probably going to go under 10 seconds by the end of this lap, and I think Dill is in a very, very strong position here. Maybe, and I'm saying that maybe, to take P3, but if the guys on the wet tyres don't pit in and they last to the end of the race, Dill's tyres will evidently be a lot quicker towards the end of the race, as it stands out on track. But remember, these tyres can really, really change within a lap or so. These conditions can really change, I should say.
Carlsberg's crossed the line then, 12 laps to go here at the German Grand Prix. And Carlsberg still leading the way from Chapelele, Toxic in third, but there is Dylan Warren in fourth place, making his way through that quick chicane, the leader of the intermediate tyres charge, as the top 3 surely now will be trying to get to the end of the race on these wet weather tyres, as Warren tries to push as much as he possibly can. 24.8 from him on that previous lap, only 0.016 slower than his previous best, also known as the fastest lap of this race. Chapelele still trying to close in on Carlsberg, but you can see there the brakes are locking up there as they headed towards turn 6 there for Chapelele. So that's a telltale sign that the cars, or the tyres I should say, aren't getting enough water to them, because they're just simply not just picking up that water. Then you've got to remember that if they hit dry track, or at least track that doesn't have any water on it, they start to overheat, so they'll lose even more grip over time. So they've really got to be careful about this. If they are planning to get these wet weather tyres to the end, they've got to be thinking ahead.
They have got to be thinking ahead, and I've got to be honest, these guys, if they want to make the decision now to go on the Inters, now is the time, because Carlsberg to Dill Warren is 18.8 seconds out on track. I honestly think once Dill gets under the 17-second mark, Carlsberg and Chapelele will have made the decision. If they decide to come into the pits on a set of Inters, that will be too late for those guys. Oh, Chapelele just getting caught. A bit of opposite luck there through turn 1. Didn't lose too much time, but the two staying consistent out in front. But the gap to watch is Dill Warren to Carlsberg. It's 18.1 seconds. It's 18 seconds flat coming across the line. He is gaining. He is on a charge. These guys have got to make a decision now, preferably on this lap, if the guys are going to pit on for a set of Inters. And I think that might just prove that Inters are quicker.
Well, I think they've already made their decision. I think they're just going to try and get to the end of this race, so long as the weather conditions stay exactly as they are. Of course, with rain, you never know if it's sticking around or if it's going to stay around for the whole race. So it's a really tough call to make, but for the top 3, they've made their decision. They're staying on the wet tyres for as long as they possibly can. Maybe they know something we're not figuring out, James. Maybe the rain will get heavier towards the end of the race. Who knows?
I think, yeah, it could be right, actually, and the rain is changing complexion completely. Recon has just gone through an Abu, sailing through Parabolica down towards the hairpin at turn 6. So Recon is now through on a lot fresher intermediate compound of tyres. He's got the move done on Abu down the straight. It was pretty easy pickings from out on track. Recon through, and he's up into 7th position. Gap between Toxic and Dill Warren, 6.6 seconds out on track, and I tell you what, Dill is absolutely flying himself into contention here. This is going to be, maybe, if all being well and these guys stay out, Dill Warren could win this race from this point onwards. He is gaining so much time lap upon lap.
We have 10 laps to go here at the German Grand Prix, and Carlsberg in the Toro Rosso leads the way from Chapelele in 2nd place. It's Toxic in 3rd, but they're all on the wet tyres. Dylan Warren is the leader on the on the intermediate tyres, and he's just gone purple through sector 1. Such as his pace at this moment in time. Recon now setting the fastest lap of the race then on a set of the intermediate tyres, on 5-lap old intermediate tyres. He's 10.7 behind his teammate, who is for position in 6th place. But yeah, this is the moment now. They've got to commit. If the weather conditions stay like this and the track stays like this, there you can see Kalsper's already moving to the right-hand side to try and pick up some more water as to try and cool the tyres down. They're quite clearly on the racing line, not staying within their optimum temperature range. They're getting too hot, and so they have to try and find wet patches on the track, standing water out there to keep these tyres cool.
Yeah, and that is the case, and I think, honestly, this is why these guys are staying consistent out in front. It's still 9/10 of a second coming around the final corner, and again, Kalsper just opts to go towards the pit wall, which means there is more water on the inside pit wall, of course, because that's where the standing water will be. But honestly, I don't think I have seen a driver on a set of Inters catch this quick. I've just looked at the previous lap times, and I'll just go on board with that as they came across the line on that lap. Dill Warren, just for reference, 24.6, new fastest lap, or new personal best actually out on track. Kalsper, 26.6 and getting slower out on track.
So that would mean that you'd need at least 18 seconds to get to the end with no bother whatsoever. That gap is currently around 13 seconds. Yeah, so that is a cause for concern for Kalsper. The only thing is that they can only hope that the intermediate tyres have a higher wear rate than the wet weather tyres. The wet weather tyres are, well, they're notoriously great at tyre wear. They can last you the whole race if they really wanted to at certain tracks, but do that at your own discretion if you really need to. The intermediate tyres, those are the treacherous and the precarious tyres. If the weather conditions are not right, they can wear at an astonishing rate.
To be honest, I've seen the Inters around here get to around 16, 17 laps before without puncturing out on track, and that's what we've got to think about as well. These guys will be going, Spike for example is going to be going, 19 laps on a set of intermediate compounded tyres. He is surely going to be in puncture territory coming towards the end of the race. Everyone else bar Dill Warren, I think, might be fine. Abby, you could throw into that little bit. Oh, Chapelletti's lost it. Oh, my God. Nearly went into the back of Kalsper for the lead of the race. Goodness me. What control there from the German. My God.
Yeah, and that shows you as well how little grip there is now on those wet weather tyres. Navy setting the fastest lap of the race, 24.448. As you saw there, that's really the opposite of aquaplaning, because you'd normally see that if the track was too wet and the tyres just aren't working, but that's just no grip. The wet weather tyres are just simply not gripping onto the track as well as they were before, and here's the consequence. Dylan Warren is closing in on Toxic for third place. 2.3 seconds is the gap between himself and a podium position for Dylan Warren. You can see there that yellow fuel light has come up, but like I said earlier in the race, fuel rate or fuel use is decreased in wet weather conditions. You use less fuel when you're running around in wet weather conditions purely because you're not using the engine as much. That's pretty much all it can be, but as it stands, he's closing in for a podium. Kalsper wants to try and take a second win in this race. Of course, he did set pole position. He wants to try and take pole to a win. It has not been easy. Lap 28 here. 7 laps to go. By my calculations, Kalsper still leads ahead of Chapelletti. Toxic, losing that back end out of the final corner, then recovers, pulls to the right-hand side to try and just get some sort of water, some sort of standing water onto those tyres. And already, once you've shown Dylan Warren some sort of vulnerability, you know he's coming.
Yeah, Dill actually through turn 1, just ran on board with him, was so neat through turn 1, hit the apex perfectly on the outside going into the corner. He is on fire here tonight. He is really beginning to hunt down on Toxic. 1.2 seconds. That gap is going to dissipate by the end of this lap. I will honestly put out a prediction now. Dill Warren will be through on Toxic before the next lap.
Well, let's see if that prediction comes true. Third gear out of turn 6 there to try and optimise the lack of wheel spin through there as we head now through turn 7 onwards now towards 8, 9 and 10. Meanwhile, just checking in with the leaders. Kalsper still leading them with 6.5 laps to go. Chapelletti there is in second place. Toxic third. Dylan Warren there is in fourth place. Yes, he's catching the leaders at a rate of knots, but right now he's got to try and get past Toxic. It's one thing catching the car ahead. It's a completely different thing passing them. Through turn 13 we go. You can instantly see how little grip Toxic had turning into the corner there at Sachs Curve. Now heading through the final 2 corners. Okay, James' prediction might not have come true this time around. But I tell you what, he's right on his tail as we head towards turn 1. Toxic opting to stay on the racing line this time around as we now fly through turn 1. Warren is right on the back of Toxic. Toxic gets slightly onto the curb, spin ups up the rear tyres very slightly as we head now towards turn 2. And Dylan Warren here is going to try and set up this move to try and straight line this corner as much as possible. Now he's in the slipstream of the Red Bull in the Mercedes. Now turns up the ERS to mode 4. He's saved up that ERS as much as he possibly can. Turns up the engine too. Moves to the left-hand side. Toxic is going to try and defend this one. This is for position. These are two strategies trying to battle each other out. Through the hairpin we go. Warren has to try and get the power down, but Toxic is defending well at the moment. Warren might be on the quicker tyre right now. He's got to try and think outside the box. Maybe at turn 8. Yes, down the inside of turn 8 he'll go. And he takes the corner away from Toxic and moves up onto the podium spots. Quick thinking from Warren, and he's up to 3rd place. Great move.
Fantastic move by Dylan. He needed that because he's now 10 seconds behind the leaders out on track. He needed to get past Toxic sooner rather than later to stand any sort of chance to catch these guys towards the end of the race. But to me, I thought that was the first sign, with him being held up, the first sign possibly that the Inters may not last towards the end of the race. But Dill is still catching. He's now gained 0.6 of a second through the last couple of corners alone. 5 laps to go, 9.4 seconds. He's catching at a rate of knots. He's just picked up a 3-second time penalty there. I think despite that, this is going to be nip and tuck all the way to the line, this.
Absolutely. Like I said, I said to you about 10 laps ago to grab your popcorn. I really hope you did, because this is it now. We're not going to take our eyes off this action. Down towards the hairpin we go. 9 seconds separates Warren from Kalsper, but as you say, it's only 4 and a bit laps to go. It's going to be a tremendous challenge now for Warren to try and close in on the top 2 as we make our way through turn 7, riding on board with Shapalele as we make our way towards turn 8. Oh, this is going to be so edge of your seat stuff, but Warren here has just got to try and keep the hammer down for as long as he possibly can. Currently the gap still stands at 9 seconds. He hasn't made any inroads into closing that gap just yet. However, you're looking at the weather here, that the rain has not really eased up. It's more a case of the tyres, or the wet weather tyres, just making sure that the water disperses from the racing line. And actually, come to think of it, riding on board with Shapalele, I'm trying to figure it out. No, the rain has eased slightly. It has eased slightly, but not by much.
Not by much at all, and I think Dill, honestly, is still catching. I mean, he's just through the middle and final sector. This is where he really comes to life. He's just gained a second on Kalsper in that sector, in that final sector alone. 7.8 seconds, 4 laps to go. 2 seconds a lap he needs to gain, ideally, to stand any sort of chance. He could do this, you know. I don't know, though. This is going to be, as I say, nip and tuck.
4 laps to go. Recon sets the fastest lap of the race. 1:24.1 from the Dutchman. He's still 8 seconds behind his teammate, so I can't really see him closing that gap with a handful of laps to go and then being on the same compound of tyre. But meanwhile, Sean, who was running up the field to try and pit in late on with those wet weather tyres, is now all the way down to 9th place. But Kalsper trying to keep calm and carry on in this race with only a handful of laps to go, only a handful of kilometres to go for Kalsper, for him to try and take his 2nd race win of the season. But this has not been handed to him. Pole to a win would not fully describe the drive that Kalsper has had to put on show here tonight. He will have earned this one, but first he's got those treacherous 9.6 kilometres to go. My goodness, this is going to be a good one. He'll cross the line now to start lap 32, and 3 laps to go here at the German Grand Prix. The gap right now between Kalsper and Dylan Warren is 6.1 seconds with 3 laps to go. So pretty much 2 seconds per lap that Warren has to close in. Suddenly this mountain is getting increasingly difficult to climb.
I don't think he's got enough gap to catch these guys. 6.1 seconds from here on in. He needs to gain 2.2 seconds to stand any sort of chance to try and win this. He's got to, first of all, get past Shapalele if he gets up the back of him. And then he's got to pass Kalsper as well to try and win this race. Remember, though, he's got a 3-second time penalty out on track. The telling factor will be, coming out of that final corner, I spied him in the back of Schuff when Kalsper was coming through turn 1. That is how much the gap was. It's 6.2 seconds for the lead of the race between the top 3. Dill is catching at a rate of knots. This is too hard to describe. I don't think he's got enough though. I think he's going to be about 2 seconds off towards the end of the race.
Well, what I'll be hoping is for Chapelele and Kalsper to start battling. That would really help him on his challenge to try and take this race win. But Kalsper now tiptoeing his way through the slightly less fast chicane, now coming in towards Sud Curve for the 32nd time in this race, on towards the start-finish line to start the penultimate lap of this German Grand Prix. Lap 33 has begun, and Kalsper still leads the way then from Chapelele in second place. Dylan Warren 4.3 behind Chapelele, but he's around about 5 seconds. Yeah, behind, so he's only closed in by 1 second on one lap. It's simply not going to be enough. It's a valiant attempt from Dylan Warren, and to be honest with you, that strategy has earned him a podium as it stands. You can't fault that for him. Well, from what didn't look like a good podium result at all, has turned into third step of it so far. We know Warren wants to win every single race he enters, but today I think he could be happy that he's got the call right. Maybe if he pitted 2 laps earlier, he might have caught them. The only problem with that would be tyre wear.
Tyre wear, I think, honestly, for Dill Warren is now the telling factor. I think even if he pitted 2 laps earlier, I've got to be honest, I think they'd be punctured by now. Because he's now losing time to Chapelele. That gap has completely stabilised within about a lap or so. And Dill, how valiant he has been in trying to chase these guys, it's not going to be enough, I'm afraid. I think we're going to go into the final lap of the race with Kalsper and Chapelele battling out for the win. But Dill has put in a stoic performance in third position to try and catch these. He's still catching these guys. The gap has just gone under 5 seconds for the lead. It's not over and done with. You never know the 2 in front my battle.
It's the final lap of the race that started by Kalsper, but will he finish there? He starts this last lap of the German Grand Prix in first place, looking to try and take his second race win of the season and become the first driver this season to have more than 1 win under his belt. He's got Chapelele 9 tenths behind. Dylan Warren is now 4.1 behind. Again, a valiant effort. He can just about see the Toro Rosso in the distance. The Williams in the distance. That's what's going to hurt him the most. There he is, coming down towards the hairpin. Chapelele, though, wanted to try and move in towards the hairpin there. That might lose him time. He might fall slightly more into the clutches of Dylan Warren there. 2.8 between himself and Dylan Warren now. But Kalsper makes his way through turns 8, 9, 10 and 11, tiptoeing his way through one last time to try and keep that car on the track. 3.5 seconds between Kalsper and Warren. Warren is putting in the lap of his life. He really wants this one, but Kalsper here now makes his way through Sud Curve for the final, through Sachs Curve I should say, for the final time. Sud Curve is just coming up now through this slightly less fast chicane, now towards Sud Curve. Through the final 2 corners we go, and Kalsper is going to take his second race win of the season. He comes towards the line to win the German Grand Prix. What a drive from Kalsper there. Chapelele, in front of his home fans, finishes in second place, and Dylan Warren tried his best with the 3-second penalty, finishes just around about 5 seconds behind the race leader. Toxic finishes in 4th place with Navy, a valiant effort to finish in 5th place there. Spike, the first to go onto the intermediates, finishes in 6th. Recon takes 7th place. Abu, who has, I think, made the intermediate calls slightly too late. So did Sean, and so too did Kelvin. He'll recover to get 8th place, but that is points on his debut in what has been quite a dramatic German Grand Prix. Sean then, who was defending against Abu at one point, has all of a sudden found himself 22.5 seconds behind, but he will finish in 9th place, and he will pick up some valuable points for himself and for Haas in this championship. And Kelvin, also on his debut, will finish in the points so long as he can make it to the checkered flag, which you would think he would be able to now as he rounds the final quarter now. But your winner for the German Grand Prix in a totally soaking wet race, a fascinating race to watch, but Kalsper finishes on top to take his second race win of the season. Well, just an incredible, incredible drive. And look at that, the sun shines on Kalsper then as he makes his way back onto the top step for the second time this season. He wins the German Grand Prix.
Fantastic win for Kalsper, out on track. I think he read the race in the end to perfection. He knew, and Schiaparelli knew, that there was a charging Mercedes in behind, and Dylan Warren doing his best. He still finishes third on the third step of the podium there. Schiaparelli obviously second, but the man of the moment, Kalsper, takes the second win of the season, and I think that extends his championship lead as well.
Unofficially, yes. Here are your unofficial results then for this German Grand Prix. Kalsper finishes on the top step for the second time this season. Pole to a win for the second time as well. Schiaparelli in second place with Dylan Warren finishing in third place. Toxic in fourth, Navy fifth with Spike in sixth. Recon seventh, Abu in eighth, Sean ninth, and Kelvin rounds out the top 10. Cass and Lighty did not make it to the checkered flag, and the fastest lap of the race looking through the order goes to Recon in 7th place there with a 24.1, and well, he does finish inside the top 10, so he will take away that extra bonus fastest lap of the race point. But what a day for Kalsper, what a race we had in our hands at the end. A valiant attempt from Dylan Warren, but Kalsper, it's not stopping him from taking race win number 2 of this season.
He got the break early on, I think Kalsper did, and honestly, Schiaparelli was quick at points in the race, but Kalsper, I think, always had his measure out on track, and Schiaparelli in second, delivering a good performance in front of his home fans, and Dylan Warren again in third, drove well. Toxic, by the way, saying he wished he could have pitted on a set of intermediate compound of tyres a couple of laps earlier than he did, because I think he would have been well up there as well, but he drove very well in fourth as well.
Absolutely, and if you did enjoy that racing, make sure you do subscribe to the channel down below, and make sure you follow the league on Twitter as well. It's at TTL_F1. We go racing next week at the Hungarian Grand Prix, so make sure you do tune in for that one. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss that ultimate moment where myself and James will be live bringing you all that action. But unfortunately, James, that brings an end to what has been a fascinating German Grand Prix.
It does bring an end to the German Grand Prix, but I tell you what, it was a fascinating race, and I just wish we could have had a couple of more laps longer in that race to see what would actually have happened in that. But the top 3 should be proud of themselves. Every driver, I think, that finished should be proud of themselves as well, out on track. And of course, if you have been totally and utterly... well, I'm trying to find the right word, actually. I've just forgot what I was going to say. If you've been inspired by the racing out on track, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Tick that notification bell. We're live tomorrow night for TTL F1 League 2 round 3 of the round 4 of the championship as we take in the German Grand Prix.
Yes, if you want to relive all that drama again, but maybe in the dry, make sure you tune in tomorrow night for League 2. But yes, thank you very much for watching. If you want to subscribe or follow your commentary team, you can find our Twitter handles on the screen just there. But thank you very much for watching this German Grand Prix, and we hope to see you again next time. Until next time, I've been Kieran McGinley.
I've been James Head.
Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.